Penny Dreadful. To most, that's just the name someone gave to scary short stories that were sold for a penny during the Victorian era. But to most of you who clicked on this video, and myself, it's the name of a show that never got the recognition it deserved. Or at least that's what I think. Penny Dreadful was created by John Logan. He also wrote it along with Andrew Hinderaker? I think that's how you say it, and Christy Wilson Cairns.
I thought, wouldn't it be fascinating if I took the inspiration from Bram Stoker and Mary Shelley and of Oscar Wilde and started melding these stories into one sort of new narrative.
And with an extremely talented set of actors attached.
Vanessa is a spiritualist. She seems very smooth on the surface, but she has all this fire underneath.
Ethan is an American sharpshooter running away from a checkered past.
Victor Frankenstein is some sort of punk doctor who's just way ahead of his time.
Malcolm is the patriarch of our family.
They've all got demons, and there's a demon in him, too.
The show premiered April 28th, 2014 on Showtime and ran for 3 seasons. The story and the writing of Penny Dreadful is what drew me to this show. I mean, also it had an interesting look to it just based off the trailer that I saw on Netflix when it was still on Netflix. But anyway, the story and the writing and the cinematography are my favorite things about this show, and I can't stop thinking about it. I finished this show so long ago, like almost 2 years ago at this point, and I still think about it. So that's why I'm making this video. I just want to talk about it. I just want to nerd out about it. This is very specific and random, but I love the dialogue in this show, which I'll get to in a second. And I really love the way they wrote Vanessa Ives.
Believe.
There are a lot of questions about Vanessa at the beginning of this show.
She doesn't often open up to the different characters that she meets.
Has some kind of power beyond the natural.
She represents the heart of Penny Dreadful and the duality between good and evil.
For the most part, there is a reason this video is called Penny Dreadful, a forgotten almost masterpiece, but I'll get to that later. Watching this show for the first time was almost surreal because half of what these characters were saying felt like they were pulled straight from some period fiction novel, a philosopher, or a book of poetry.
Take it to a slaughterhouse. I'm not a medical practitioner. I'm engaged in research.
You're a man with a bloody knife like everybody else out there. So stop putting on airs.
Do you believe there is a demi-monde, Mr. Chandler? A half-world between what we know and what we fear. A place in the shadows, rarely seen but deeply felt. Do you believe that?
Yes.
I would never chart a river or scale a peak to take its measure or plant a flag. There's no point. It's solipsistic self-aggrandizement. So too those scientists who study the planet seeking astronomical enlightenment for its own sake. The botanist studying the variegation of an Amazonian fern. The zoologist caught up in the endless fascination of an adder's coils. And for what? Knowledge for itself alone. The elation of discovery. Plant your flag on the truth. There is only one worthy goal for scientific exploration. Piercing the tissue that separates life from death. Everything else, from the deep bottom of the sea to the top of the highest mountain on the farthest planet, is insignificant. Life and death, Sir Malcolm. The flicker that separates one from the other, fast as a bat's wing, more beautiful than any sonnet. That is my river. That is my mountain. There I will plant my flag.
I thought of a particular lion hunt many years ago. You're moving through the tall grass, getting a glimpse of the prey, the shoulders mostly, the mane. You prepare your rifle, you're very quiet. And then there's a moment. The wind changes. The grass stops swaying. The lion turns, looks at you. The moment you realize you are no longer the hunter, you are the prey.
We here have been brutalized with loss. It has made us brutal in return. Do you believe a place can be haunted?
Yes.
Have you been in such a place?
Indian graveyard in Arizona. Indians I killed.
Were you frightened?
I felt I belonged there.
I've run from the darkness for so long, only to find myself in a place darker still.
I've only one other question. Why me?
Because you were unafraid to pull back the skin and look beneath.
We've all done things to survive. There are such sins in my back, it would kill me to turn around.
Have you imagined for one moment what this has been for me? An unforgivable transgression that has marked me for life. You think you've suffered? You think you know blood? You think you've walked on corpses? Spread them from here to the horizon, and I have walked further. You weak, foul, lustful, vainglorious man. How dare you presume to speak to me of death?
And we shall speak of it together.
And, like, these characters didn't say these things, or rather, all the writers of this show didn't write this dialogue, all for it to be, for the most part, forgotten about. Whenever I found a way to sneak this show into a conversation and ask someone about it, they always respond with, "A what?" I have yet to run into a person in real life who's seen this show. And that makes me so upset, because it's really great. It has some certain qualities about it that I don't like, but it's really great. And it doesn't help that Showtime's contract with Netflix is up, and now it streams exclusively on Showtime, or you can only buy it on places like YouTube, which is where I bought it from after they took it off of Netflix. There are shows that like to advertise themselves as dark, about moral ambiguity, the demons within us, how we all carry the mistakes of our pasts on our shoulders, but very few really do that. It's often not even the main focus of these shows, because they know that these are profitable taglines, and whether or not a show delves into those topics enough based on the amount they advertised it to is very subjective. They use them because they know those kinds of subject matters are things a lot of us like to see explored because we relate to them. But this show actually delivers on that promise. Like, for example, you may not be a werewolf who transforms at night and killed a dozen people in a tavern, but maybe you've physically hurt people and you live with that regret. You may not have created life from death, and that mistake haunts you figuratively and literally, but maybe you did something bad that came from selfishness, and that made you blind to seeing it was a mistake, and now you have to live with it. You may not be an explorer of Africa who had an affair with your neighbor and neglected your daughter, and many other things, which resulted in the ruining of several lives, including your own, but maybe you've acted on impulse and done stupid things because of that, and now you're trying to make amends. You may not be a psychic who's haunted by the devil himself because you did a lot of stupid stuff because you resented someone, but maybe you did some stupid stuff to get back at someone, and those decisions hang over your head like a storm cloud.
I love storms. Primordial. Every bit of civilization gone. Everything true coming out.
Let it.
And while yes, the acting in this show is fantastic and the plot is mostly great and the cinematography is gorgeous, I love the cinematography in the show so much. I love it so much. It's that element that I keep going back to. These characters, especially Vanessa. I'm hard-pressed to find a female protagonist in something that is so well-rounded as she is. I'm sure there are some, but I couldn't think of any while writing the script. She's a strong female protagonist, but not in the forced or cliche way we see it done so often where it just feels disingenuine. She's just an emotionally strong and great character that happens to be a woman. She's a survivor, which is why the ending to this show is so incredibly upsetting. And it boggles my mind to think why John Logan, the series creator, showrunner, and writer, would think that killing her off was the right way to go. I mean, this character's entire mission from season 1, episode 1, and on was to survive.
You can't resist me forever, darling.
But I can. Now.
A character who's been through so much crap and survived all of it, and then they just killed her. And yes, Vanessa's death was self-sacrifice, which might make her death not that bad in other people's eyes, but that doesn't matter to me. She's dead. And that goes against the entire point of this character. Throughout the entire show, the group talk about how they're gonna win against the evil. Vanessa won't be taken by the devil.
You know Mr. Lyle won't give up. If there's any sense to be found in all this, he'll find it. And the doctor, too, they won't let this thing hurt you. You will not die while I'm here. You will not surrender while I live.
And how in the end the good guys win. And they do, technically, but at what cost? Telling your audience that it doesn't matter how hard you fight against the darkness inside you, it will always win in the end? That, hey, you might go through literal hell and be thrown into an incredibly serious depression, but you'll come out on top of both of those things and survive and thrive, but it's just gonna come back and kill you eventually anyway. No, that's not true, and it's not what you should be saying. Because no matter if you're someone who thinks, oh, it's just a TV show, it's not like it really matters all that much. Stories tell us things, and we listen, whether we realize it or not. Our minds soak up what we hear, whether we want it to or not, which means that if you're gonna tell a story with a tragic ending or where you kill off your protagonist, it has to make sense for the tone of the rest of the story. Your audience has to know what they're getting into. And despite all of the very dark themes and dark things that happen in Penny Dreadful, I never once thought that this show would actually kill Vanessa, which might seem like a good thing. Oh, it was an ending you didn't expect. Isn't that good writing? No, not all the time. You can't just have your protagonist and literally every other character that surrounds them constantly comment on how she's a survivor and how they're going to do everything they can to keep her alive and that she's special, and literally set up the entire story to be about how there is light at the end of the tunnel, how it can and does get better despite how dark it gets, despite how heavy your past may seem, and then just kill the literal poster character for all of those things. To me, killing Vanessa just feels like a betrayal of her character and of us, the audience. And that might seem a little dramatic, but guess what? Storytelling is my passion, and therefore I get to be as dramatic as I want, and you're all just along for the ride. This is what you're gonna get from this channel. So if you like it, subscribe. If you don't, okay, that's fine. And of course, I have other gripes as well, like the random and mostly useless introduction of Dr. Jekyll in season 3, the fact that the only black character and the only person of color in general on the show at the time was killed off for no reason and was never given proper screen time in the first place. Rest in peace, Sambini.
Sembene embodies the fear of the unknown.
You deserved so much more. Looking past those, however, like I said, there's a lot of good stuff in this show. So if you're willing to look past those things, you'll find a show that, other than those things, just works really well. I mean, so much of this show just flows right and establishes a great atmosphere and somehow manages to blend characters from a bunch of different stories into a somber yet hopeful, fantastical yet relatable story about characters who are all survivors, who all were flawed and unusual, but they were chosen either by fate or destiny, or as Ethan and Vanessa put it,
We're together for a reason.
God's plan.
Yes.
Of course, the show has other themes and messages, but to me, that's the main theme. And I love that. That's like my favorite thing. Found family coming together to save the world, or something at least, from evil. And sure, you may lose one or another on the way. No good story is without conflict or maybe some kind of loss, but in the end, evil loses. The good guys win. Even if the good guys themselves are all shades of morally gray. But Vanessa shouldn't have been killed. It throws the entire theme of the show off, in my opinion, and at best feels like they were trying to go for some kind of vaguely poetic ending, and at worst feels like this was the easiest ending to come up with, and it would shock the audience, so they just went with it. Penny Dreadful, to me, at the end of it all, tells the story of flawed and hurt and sometimes unkind characters.
I have been much feared and hated in my life. By my people, by yours. These marks mean I was a slave trader. This is my sin to live with. But in this house, I have found kindness among the unkind.
But that also means that it tells the stories of characters that are incredibly human. And I think that's important. I think it's something a lot of shows don't do or don't do well. I think it does something we all need every once in a while. A reminder that we're all just trying to be better than we were yesterday. We all have a lot more in common than we do different, and to give ourselves the ability to forgive ourselves for what we've done in our pasts. which is all to say why I consider Penny Dreadful a forgotten, almost masterpiece. Well, that was fun. I've been wanting to make a video on Penny Dreadful for a very, very long time, and I'm so happy that I finally did it. It just putting the words down in terms of how I feel about this show was so difficult, because I feel so many things about the show, but I think I did it in a concise enough way that it makes sense. But of course, as always, tell me what all of you think about the show. What does it mean to you? What does it say to you? How did you feel about Vanessa's death? Did you think that it made sense for the story? I would love to know. But anyway, as always, stay safe, stay healthy, and I hope to see you again.